exactly. He's my age. He's actually a little older than me.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, longtime sports radio personality. Today's show is going to be really special because we've got Barry Bloom from MLB.com on. He's going to join us in the second segment. Bruce, you want to tell us a little bit about Barry?
Yeah, Barry is an interesting guy. We go back a long ways. Both of us started our careers in the mid-'70s. Barry worked for Sport Magazine. He worked for a number of papers back east. Then he was a beat writer for about 20 years in San Diego, covering the Padres when Bruce Bochy was a player and later a manager. And he covered a couple of World Series there. Then he went to Bloomberg News back in New Jersey. And then he worked, it's been about 7 years now for MLB.com, which is really probably your best website to get information about Major League Baseball. He's one of the senior writers there. And he travels around and covers all the teams. He basically lives in Arizona, which is perfect for spring training.
Sure, so spring training is starting up now.
Yeah.
So that's why today's trivia theme is baseball.
All right.
And we're going to have some baseball trivia questions. If you are one of the first three emails with the correct answer, you're going to win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouseresortandmarina.com. And let's see, if we have some time, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the San Francisco Giants wanting to travel in more comfort as they chase another championship. They're going to be possibly getting a retrofitted Boeing 757 with 90 first-class seats.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, I've traveled with the Giants when I was working with the Giants flagship station for many years back in the 90s and early 2000s. And they had a very comfortable plane, but it was basically a plane with a lot of first-class seats and some second-class seats. What they want, and when I say second-class, and these are just the kind of seats that most of us
take.
You know, you're traveling a lot in Major League Baseball, Edward, and when you are, you want to be comfortable because, you know, these guys are using their bodies for their living, and they're changing time zones, and, you know, sometimes they're running into bad weather. So if you have open space for your legs, you can stretch out, take a nap. It's important.
I totally agree. Okay, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, and when we come back, Barry Bloom will join us. All right, let's get Barry on the phone here.
He's usually pretty reliable.
Boy, just dialing a 415 all the time.
I know, it's kind of annoying, isn't it?
Really?
I know. The sign of the times, we have so many more people now. Your phone.
Hello.
Barry?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Edward Brown and Bruce McGowan.
Hey, Barry, what's going on?
How are you?
Good. You ready to do something with us here? Talk a little baseball?
I can't wait.
All right.
That's what I love, an exciting.
There we go.
So we'll just start here in just a second. And
how's the weather down in Arizona?
A little chillier today.
Oh, really? Okay. It's about 70 degrees where we are today. It's unbelievable.
That's great.
Yeah.
Or my motorcycle.
70 degrees here is a little chilly.
That's true.
That's
I was in Southern California last weekend and it actually rained.
Yeah, no, it actually drizzled down there today. I read something in the paper about that. So.
There was some drizzle down here today, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's actually 53 degrees here today.
Oh, that's not too bad. That's not too bad.
Good baseball weather.
Here you go.
Okay, so I'm going to come back. I'm going to say welcome back to Sports Econ 101, and I'll just turn it over to you, Bruce.
Okay.
And introduce our guest. Okay. Here we go.
You're not going to sound like you're in a wind tunnel like you are right now.
Yeah. Okay, hold on.
Hang on just a
Hold
second.
on.
No, don't worry about it. It does sound it probably sounds a little strange from your end, but believe me, it all works out in the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready?
All right, here we go.
Okay,
Here we
hold
go.
on a second. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. And Bruce, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah, this is a good friend of mine, Barry Bloom, who works for MLB.com. He's a senior writer there, covers Major League Baseball, has been doing it for several years. And we mentioned Barry's background, having covered Major League Baseball since the mid-1970s, and also for many years a beat writer with the San Diego Padres when Bruce Bochy was a player there and later managed there. And And Barry, you've been covering spring training. You're living in Arizona, of course, and a lot of interesting stories. Edward and I are curious right off the bat. This recent story that you had about the Boston Red Sox, who just signed the Cuban teenager, and I want you to pronounce his name correctly because I'll probably butcher it. But he's only 19 years old, a tremendous free agent infielder, and he gets a signing bonus of $31.5 million. Tell us a little bit about this kid.
Moncado, I know about as much of him as I've read because I haven't seen him play. He hasn't played international ball, so he hasn't been on any of the Cuban teams. He's just one of the guys that they're picking off now off the ball fields down there before they figure out how they're going to deal with these young Cuban players at this point.
Barry, I got a question for you. In Cuba, $31 million can buy a lot. So I'm wondering, how does it get to be such a high number? Is it there's a lot of competition between teams who found this kid? I mean,
right. I mean, obviously, it has nothing to do with Cuba, and the kid's not going to be living in Cuba. He's going to be living in the U.S. And there was such, my understanding, and especially talking to some of these general managers, is that there was such competition among major league teams for this kid that the price was able to be hiked up as high as it was.
It's interesting. The Yankees, I guess, offered him $25 million, but the Red Sox outbid him. And of course, whenever the Red Sox and Yankees go for a player, it really becomes quite a little competition. What's the outlook for these two teams again now, Barry? Because the Yankees last year had some problems with pitching depth. The Red Sox, of course, fell back after winning the championship the year before. I mean, these are the two teams that probably get the most attention in Major League Baseball, and the rivalry, as we know, is storied. What's the feeling about going into this season? How good these teams are going to be?
Well, let's take the Yankees first. All of the Yankees basically relies on their frontline pitching. There's two things with them. You have Sabathia, Tanaka, Pineda, all coming back from portions of the season missed last year with injury. You have Nova still out after Tommy John surgery. They've re-signed Capuano for the back of their rotation. You got a new closer, probably in Betances, who has an electric fastball and reminds very much like a young Mariano Rivera at that point. And I think he should be well suited if his shoulder stays healthy to fill into that role. But I think really, how much do you get out of those three pitchers? Because the Yankees finished, 4 games out of the playoffs last year. They had 84 wins. The A's wound up as the second wild card with 88. Had those guys been healthy all season, I think they would have easily made up those 4 wins, if not more. And as far as the Red Sox go, really they're going into the season without a frontline pitcher. I mean, it's Buchholz, it's Kelly, it's it's a menagerie there, and they're going to have to get as much out of their starting pitching as they can in kind of a makeshift bullpen. So all of it, so much baseball relies now on pitching. Now, I don't really look for the Red Sox to do much of anything. They beefed up a lot of their offense. Their outfield offense was probably the worst in Major League Baseball last year. All they've done is bring in outfielders since then. They've got Hanley Ramirez. They signed him. He's supposedly going to play the outfield. It's a congested situation. Pablo's, as you know, there at third base. So it's really a congested situation there, and we'll just have to see how they handle it. But really, both teams just are so up in the air going into spring training in terms of where players are going to fit. That until you get to the start of the season and probably into it, you're really not going to know what they're going to do.
Change the subject for just a quick second. What do you think of Hunter Strickland?
Do you know anything about him?
Strickland,
Yeah.
And I think he has the process. He's got an electric fastball, and I think he's got the opportunity to be a pretty good pitcher. Obviously, he had some problems in the postseason last year. Team started hitting on his fastball a little bit, and they hit a lot of homers off of him.
Yeah.
That can be corrected by bringing the ball down in the strike zone and varying up pitches a little bit.
You know, it's interesting. I get kind of critical
a lot
of these.
of upside potential of having struggled.
I mean, Bruce knows me. I get very critical of a lot of the players. But it's interesting. I watched him pitch, and he actually did pretty well in the playoffs. It was the World Series that he started giving up the home runs. But you know, you look at this kid, and he's only 26, and you can see a lot of potential in him. And again, he's got to throw some kind of off speed or have another pitch. How easy is it to teach somebody to who could throw 100 miles an hour another pitch to rely on and hit the strike zone?
Well, I don't think if you're a starter, it's a completely different story. But as a reliever, if you could just vary speeds on your fastball and throw it to points of the strike zone, down in the strike zone, and you're going to pitch for one inning or a couple of batters, I don't think you really need another pitch.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because hitting 90 or hitting 100.
Aiming the fastball and getting it at certain spots in the zone and pitching it outside of where hitters can hit it. And each individual hitter, as you know, has a particular zone that you try to put it in to stay away from their hot spot, and that's what he has to do.
Well, you think of it, the typical pitcher can throw, let's say in the low 90s, and there's a huge difference between throwing 100 miles an hour and 92 miles an hour. You're talking about fouling it off versus, potentially hitting a home run.
But if it's a straight fastball, even at 100 miles an hour, a good hitter can sit on it and knock it out, which is what they were doing against him.
Interesting about Hunter Strickland, too, for those that may have wondered, who is Hunter Strickland? Well, if you didn't watch the World Series last year, you didn't know who he is, perhaps. He pitched for the Giants. He's a rookie. Will be a rookie again this year because he didn't pitch enough. But he was being joshed by some of his friends in the offseason for giving off all the home runs. And he took it pretty well. A lot of young guys could have really gotten rocked internally by that sort of an experience. And it seems as if that's a key. Barry, you've seen enough athletes. They can handle some of the adversity when it comes at a very critical time. If they can get through that, that can get them, to the next step.
Well, all of this is mental and how you deal with failure, especially if you're a relief pitcher. You have to be able to dust yourself off after a bid out and go back the next day like nothing happened. And essentially, convert 95% of the appearances you have, whether they're hold appearances or save appearances. That's the way you have to go. There's always going to be like 3 to 5% failure rate in that. And then how you deal with it over the long term is whether or not you can stick in the majors or you can make conversion from setup guy to a closer and yada, yada, yada. But I think all this talk about Hunter Strickland is pretty premature anyway. He's got options, and if there are no injuries in the Giant camp, they're overloaded with pitchers at this point. He's going to the minor leagues.
Yeah, I like when they can when a pitcher who gets, let's say, demoted from starter to the bullpen and just takes it like a man. I guess Lincecum was like that. He just think whatever the team.
And another guy who was very much like that, I'm sure you dealt with him a little bit, Barry, is Jeremy Affeldt, who apparently last year was initially credited with the win in Game 7, but they initially gave it to Madison Bumgarner, but then they looked at the Goliath Sports Bureau looked at what Affeldt had done, and he'd actually been the pitcher on the mound of record when the Giants took the lead, so they gave it to him. That was kind of a neat story because he had pitched in Kansas City before that and not pitched very well. It had some problems and really shaken his confidence.
Now, Barry, stay with us. We're going to go to our first commercial break here. The theme is baseball, and here's your first trivia question. Who was the first? Now, Barry, don't answer this question until we come back, okay? Because I know you know everything about baseball. All right, who was the first catcher in Major League history to win the MVP award? All right, the first 3 emails with the correct answer are going to win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. Who was the first catcher in Major League history to win the MVP award? Stay with us. You are listening to Sports Econ 101 with Edward Brown and Bruce McGowan. And when we come back, we're going to continue on with Barry Bloom from MLB.com.
So, Barry, was it Roy Campanella?
I think it was Campanella, yeah.
I think it was, too. We'll let you answer that one. I'm guessing, I was thinking Elston Howard won it one year. Didn't he, with the Yankees?
No, I don't think Howard.
He did?
Mike, I don't think he ever won it.
Okay. I was just reading an interesting book about...
Barry won it, I think.
Barry, that's right. Okay, that's why I'm getting messed up. I just read an interesting book about the Juan Marichal, John Roseborough fight, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that book. I'd like to get it.
Yeah, you'd enjoy it. What's interesting about it is the historical perspective of what's going on at the time, and the two, got Roseboro with all his associations with people like Roger Craig and Juan Marichal with his, coming to the Bay Area with, Felipe Alou sort of being a mentor. It's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Well written. I was at that game, by the way. I was,
Really?
yeah, it was my best friend's
62,
13th
right?
birthday. We were sitting out in the bleachers, and still can't, I think the whole crowd was just so stunned when Marichal whacked him on the head.
Baseball,
Yeah, it was
A little bit.
Giants Dodgers.
Okay, so here we come back with our. Here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. When we come to the first commercial break, we ask this trivia question. Again, the theme is baseball. Who was the first catcher in Major League history to win the MVP award? Anybody?
Well, I'm going to let Barry answer this one. I think I know the answer, but I think Barry's a New York native. He might have an answer as well. What do you think, Barry?
Well, it's either Bear or Campanella. I'll go with Campanella.
Actually, you got to go back further.
Ooh.
Really?
Mickey Cochran.
Oh,
Philadelphia A's, 1928.
I was going to say Detroit Tigers, but
Then he got traded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well. That was before our time, right, Bear?
Yeah, I got
the only thing that is before.
yeah.
I got a couple of hard questions here. You gotta know more than just regular baseball.
Oh,
to at least
my
question.
goodness.
Forget I'm not good at
Okay.
Hey, Bear, what we got you here? I got to ask you about your feelings about the Giants. What a strange run this has been. 3 championships, but separated by a year on each side, and very different teams in some respects. But the key element, of course, has been deep pitching, and one guy who sort of carried the load, especially in this last year. What do you think of the Giants this year, coming back after losing Sandoval and losing Michael Morris, and not really picking up a whole lot through free agency? Is this another year for them to sort of fall back into the pack, or are they going to be still right at the top?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wrote a long column about this today. That they opened camp with the full squad today. Sandoval and Flannery, which I think both of them are big losses, to the franchise over the course of time. And the point of it is that what Michael Morris too is gone. Between Sandoval and Morris, they hit something like 32 home runs, 16 each between them last year. And the 2 guys that they picked up to replace them, McGee and Aoki, have hit 5 last year. They had the least amount of home runs in the National League with 53 at home. They don't hit very many home runs at home. And in 2000, sometimes they win without it, as happened, I think, in 2012, they hit 37 home runs maybe at home. And
Wow.
Barry Bonds hit 39 alone.
Well, do you think that they just traded?
Year, he broke the record. So
Yeah.
somehow they're going to have to compensate by doing other things for the loss of power, production, and RBIs. And I think with Sandoval, even energy and a lot of things. Plus, I think Flannery and Sandoval had a lot of energy and spirit that they added to the team.
Yeah, he's talking about. By the way, Barry's talking about Tim Flannery, the third base coach.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
was thinking about which player was Flannery, but
Yeah.
I go use the coach.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Saying all that though, they've got Kane coming back, who's looking good. They've got a guy coming back who was swinging free and easy today and says he feels no pain anymore after the back surgery.
Yeah.
So those are good additions. They won without them last year. Those 2 guys were really major contributors in 2012.
You think maybe with Morris that they were just giving up hitting to get fielding because Aoki is a pretty good fielder?
Well, yeah, but he's not going to be one of their regulars out there anyway. I mean, it's essentially he'll play a little bit of left field, but with Pagan back, it's a very crowded outfit.
Yeah, you got, of course, Hunter Pence, the guy who played almost he played every game last year, and he's an amazing athlete and just an incredible specimen. But you wonder if it might be a good idea for Bruce Bochy to give him a rest just once in a while.
Well, that's what Bochy was talking about today. He said that he's talking to Pence about that, and we'll just see if he follows it through.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Well,
Giants are basically in that division.
The
other thing that I wrote about yesterday is that all the moves the Dodgers made in the offseason, they really don't go into the season with very good bullpens.
Yeah,
the Giants have the best bullpen in the National League West, and the bullpen really has been, aside for, obviously great starting pitching. You had Lincecum in 2010 and Kane in 2012 and Bumgarner last year. There's always a stud that steps up. You didn't have Wilson sending certificates in the postseason in 2010, and then you didn't have what Romo and Casilla did. And to your point with Abdel, just being able to turn to him when Hudson had nothing last year in Game 7, and you were able to bridge him a couple of innings to get the Bumgarner. These guys are tried and true. You can see it, Romo and Econ have been the core of all three champions. And so I think they have a great bullpen. They've got the best manager in baseball dealing with a bullpen in Bochy. And I think they've got every chance of coming back. That division's wide open. I think every division's wide open.
I was going to ask you, though.
Who's injured,
Yeah.
could very well win again.
I was going to ask you, though, Barry, about San Diego because, again, their pitching, even though they picked up James Shields, which should help their pitching quite a bit, they're intriguing with the additions of Kemp and Upton in the outfield. But I'm wondering, is this the year, make a break kind of a year for Bud Black? Because he's a good manager, but he just hasn't had a lot to work with since 2010.
Yeah, in 2010 was an aberration. 2007 really, the team that he inherited from Bochy was pretty deep team. Had great pitching. TV was the Cy Young Award winner and the NL Pitching Triple Crown winner that year. It had veterans, Giles, Mondo at first. Coffee in the bullpen. It was really a terrific team.
Yeah.
So, this year, I think they go back in, with essentially the best team since then.
Mm-hmm.
And just having Kemp and Upton in the middle of the lineup, this kid batted 226 last year. He finished last in baseball in batting average, home runs, and RBIs. So it can't be any worse. I was talking to Kemp about this the other day. If you increase it simply by about a run and a half a game in production, they're probably, I think they lost only 85 games last year. They could flip that and win 85 games, and then it might not mean that they'll win or get a wild card, but they're going to be competitive and right in the middle of it. Now, to me, their big hole, as I just mentioned, they go into the season with really an unaccomplished closer. Joaquin Benoit is probably the closer. He's never done it for a full season. When they traded Street last year, they brought him in, and he stayed 10 games, then hurt his shoulder, and missed a month. So, in the long, not in this storied history of the Padres, they've always had a lifetime closer.
With that,
you've got Hall of Famers, Gossage in the fingers. You've got Cy Young Award winner Mark Davis. You had Hopkins, who's got the most saves in history in the National League. And then you've got, even since him, you've had Bell and Street, who were great. Now they go in with a lot of good arms, but no accomplished closer. And I think this is going to be a fitting out problem for them. Yeah, I agree with you. I think with Bud, the two chances they had to win in 07 and 10, they lost on the last day of the season.
do you think
He's never pushed them over the top. He's on last year of his contract. I think he's on a short leash there. I really do.
So, Barry, with the crowded additions for the Padres, where do you think Will Venable will be hot seat?
Well, they also have a lot of outfielders at this point. They've got Nathan too. Then they've got Will Myers, who's going to play center field. Upton's going to play left. Kemp is going to play right. So basically, they're not going to carry five outfielders. So either Venable or Maitland is going to go. So we'll see what happens and how this stays healthy going through spring training before they figure it all out. And their infield it's really kind of like really a patchwork at this point because their shortstop is a nobody in Amarista, the guy they got a couple of years ago when they traded Nestor Ferrari to the Angels. And Turco, their second baseman, had a good year 2 years ago, and then playing with a bad foot, fell off the map last year. They signed him to a long-term deal. So it's Alfonso at first. He's never really done much of anything. Derek Norris, the A's backup guy, is their starting catcher. So there's a lot of places to look at. But when you start with the Padres, I think as Bruce, you pointed out, you start with the starting pitcher, and now you bring Shields into the mix, and he's really not even their number one starter.
Mm-hmm.
Cashner and Tyson Ross probably go ahead of Shields. And if you put Shields as your number 3 or number 4 pitcher and don't make him your number 1, you're going to win a lot of games with Shields in that ballpark and pitching in the National League West.
Before we get to another break, I wanted to ask a quick question about the Yankees. What do you think about A-Rod coming back and him being age 39 this year? What do you think the impact's going to be?
Basically, we're down to, after all the talk about A-Rod, now it's can he play or can he not play? And the guy's played 33 games in 2 years. He came back towards the end of the 2013 season. He played well for a while and then just fell apart physically. The question now is, comes into spring training, can he hit? I was talking to Barry Bonds about this at length the other night. A-Rod came up and worked out with Bonds for 4 days around the start of the year in January. And Bonds told me, I asked him flat out that question. Do you think that A-Rod can still play? And Bonds said, hell if I know. I mean, I only saw him for 4 days. I have no idea how much he's been working out.
Yeah.
But he said, every time I talk to him or try to track him down, he's somewhere else. I get the feeling he isn't working out too much. And, coming in, he wasn't able to catch up with a fastball 2 years ago.
Wow.
Now,
Okay, hey, Barry,
he's coming up.
stay with us.
To his other hip, so he had both hips.
Okay, Barry, stay with us. We do have to get to one more break here. We are on the phone with Barry Bloom from MLB.com. Here, we're going to ask a quick trivia question before we go to the break. Who set National League record for being caught stealing 36 times in the season? Tough question. All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101.
Gotta be something.
Sorry about that. The station's very strict about my hard breaks here.
No worries.
Gotta be somebody who stole a lot of bases, maybe, yeah?
Not
No,
really.
no.
One would think.
At 36
No,
caught stealing.
you've definitely heard of this person.
Okay. Recent?
No.
Okay. We're going back a few years.
Going back a few years.
You got any idea, Barry? I'm stumped on this one. Who got caught?
Coleman?
Vince Coleman. That's a good one. Yeah. Because he was one of the top stealers, and he also, well, let's see. Edward's not going to let us know until.
Yeah, that's right. I always like to.
Yeah. Surprise.
Surprise.
How's the wife doing? All right.
Everybody's good.
Good. Your kids are back in New York still? One of them's in New York.
Both of them in
Both of them in New York. And they're both in John.
Both married.
Both married. Jeez. Wow. No kids on the way. No grandkids yet, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's. Yeah,
Tell them hurry up.
Got plenty of time on that one.
That's what I keep telling them. Yeah.
My son's got a girlfriend, and it's like, don't know yet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get this one here. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Second trivia question we asked was, who set the National League record for being caught stealing 36 times in the season? It was a tough one.
Barry, you got an answer on that one? You gonna try?
I think if I remember correctly, Ricky holds the all-time record, right?
The all-time record for steals.
No,
For being most caught steals.
Yeah, but this is got caught 36 times in a season. Okay, you ready for this?
Ricky got, I think, 42.
Okay, you guys are going to kill me for this one. You got to go back to 1914.
I've got the answer for
Oh, what is it?
He's the first big manager for the New York Yankees.
That is correct. Miller Huggins.
Miller Huggins.
Miller Huggins. That is correct.
Very good.
So he attempted 68 times and was only successful 32 times. So because he got caught 36.
He was a little guy. He was only like about 5'5", maybe 130 pounds, but I didn't know he was that fast.
Well, it took him 6 minutes to go from first to second. That's why he got caught. Okay, so we're on the phone with Barry Bloom from MLB.com. So Barry, we only have about 10 minutes to go here, and I know Bruce wanted to ask you about all your favorite teams from the 1970s.
Well, I wanted to ask Barry first of all. The thing that Barry has going for him is that he is not only aggressive in terms of being able to go after and get a story, and works harder than just about anybody I know, but he's also forged some great relationships with a lot of big name players and some players that are fascinating personalities. And I want to talk to you briefly, Barry, about your relationship with Barry Bonds, because you became very close with Barry Bonds many, many years ago when he was a rookie in Pittsburgh. And you guys stayed close over all these years. And talk about, your relationship with this guy, because Barry Bonds is kind of a complex individual who is not real popular with a lot of the folks in the media, but you guys have always been on a pretty good, you've always gotten along with the guy very well.
Yeah, well, I always tell the story. It's pretty funny where, when he was playing for the Pirates and I was covering the Padres, they used to encourage us to do stories on teams in the other locker room. And in those days, the Padres would play in Pittsburgh, and probably the next week they'd play the Pirates in San Diego. So I wanted to do an update piece on Bond before that series. And I went into the locker room, and he was sitting sprawled out in front of his locker on the floor, yapping it up the way he always did. And, I walked over to him, introduced myself, and told him what I wanted to do. And Bond looked up at me, and he goes, "Okay, I'll do the story with you, but if I don't like it, I'll never talk to you again."
Fair enough.
Yeah. What?
He liked the story.
Uh-huh.
And then, the relationship just went from there. When I went back and I told Bond the next story, he said, "Yeah, that sounds like me."
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit it off with people, and well because of your Bay Area and your San Francisco upbringing. And Willie had a relationship with a sports writer named Charlie Einstein from the Chronicle, which was very similar to Barry's relationship with me. And Barry always said, particularly in all the years with the Giants, when I was with him mostly every day and he was going after all the home run records, he was like, "I've always wanted to have one sports writer that I could talk to like Willie," and I was the guy.
Mm.
And there was another Jewish sports writer, so it worked out.
Well, it's kind of funny, though. Barry went through a tough period, and we all know that a lot of people in your profession and in our profession feel that his record is tainted because of the steroid use, which was rampant. Everybody was doing it. But has he ever addressed that or talked about it with you at all, or is it just something that you try not to get into because you know it's going to be an uncomfortable situation?
No, I mean, there's been, thousands of hours of off-the-record conversations that I've had with him, probably, I would say 10 to 20 times more off-the-record conversations, or just, yucking it up type of conversation, just like among friends that have had with Bonds and actually on the record. So we've talked a lot about a lot of this stuff. And, basically, I don't think he apologizes for anything he does. And he basically had to hit the home runs. It doesn't matter what you did. And you can cast your aspersions on any of these guys, but did it make him hit more? Did it make him hit, a few feet more? There's no quantitative, study or proof that's ever been done on any of this, so we really don't know. It's all speculation.
Mm-hmm.
We do know that some of it probably made him work harder and made a lot of these guys give the ability to recover faster, work out more, lift more weight, and more power to him, because you still have to put in the work. If you didn't put in the work,
Exactly.
or weren't going to overnight turn you into a better player. It's just not the way it happened.
Well, the funny thing was steroids really kind of saved baseball in a weird sort of a way. I mean, 1998 was really the year that baseball came back with the McGuire-Sosa home run chase after 1994, which nearly destroyed the game. So in a weird sort of way.
Yeah, you know what? I don't buy that.
You know? Okay.
I think that, obviously performance-enhancing drugs were a part of the story.
Mm.
But I think if you look at every expansion year in baseball, the home run records went out of whack. 51 was Mano Maris chase, and they added 2 new teams into the American League. Pitching thinned out. At the same time, in that era, they were going to all the newer ballparks with much shorter and different configurated fences than you were in the 70s and 80s. Then, the pitching again thinned out because of expansion. And I really do believe that the balls were lighter.
Yeah, but then you also had, 66, 67 when they,
balls were jacked.
what was it, 1967 when they raised the mound? and
So they lowered.
They lowered the amount actually. After 68, they lowered the amount, and they raised and lowered the strike zone, which allowed hitters to suddenly boom.
Yeah, because Yastrzemski was the only one who hit 300.
Yeah, in the American League.
Yeah, that's I don't know. It's as a fan, you want to see a lot of hits. You like good pitching, but you want to see the home runs and the excitement. It's like watching basketball and seeing a guy slam dunk.
And again, Barry, I don't know if you agree with us on this, but I think that's the thing that fueled the steroid use was the fans were interested. The team certainly didn't dissuade the players, and everybody was in love with the long ball. Everybody likes the home run ball.
Well, I mean, I've always said that the steroid thing was a great conversation among media and owners, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think one less difference because baseball players might have been using steroids. It was just another matter of speculation.
No, but the strike.
History during that era.
Yeah, but do you remember the '94 strike though? I mean, that I was funny. As much of a baseball fan as I was so upset when the season ended. And being a Giants fan, we had Matt Williams, who was potentially going for the record back then.
Oh, in '94, sure.
Yeah. And it was so. I mean, I was so angry. It took me almost a year to start watching baseball again.
Well, I think that
what happened in 1995? I don't know.
It happened to a lot. It happened to a lot of folks, but
you can't take away from Cal Ripken breaking Garrett's record in '95 too for consecutive games, which started to put the creep back into baseball where people were starting to pay a little bit of attention to it again. But yeah, I think there were a lot of fans like you got so sick of the constant work stoppages in the sport. In '95, '94, wiping out the rest of the season. Gwynn had a chance to hit 400 that year. Montreal wound up in its ninth gasp of being able to win the division title that year. The Yankees were back; they could have won the division title that year. There were a lot of things that were abruptly ended.
Griffey,
not to mention the World Series and the playoffs that year. And it just, I think it taught everybody in Major League Baseball, owners, players, certainly the commissioner, that it could never happen again. That's why you've had labor peace system.
Yeah, you mentioned Cal Ripken, and that guy always seemed to be quite a class act. Similar to Jeter. Who would you say nowadays is someone like that?
Like Cal.
Yeah, just someone who's got a lot of class.
I'd say Posey is a class act. He's like Jeter. He really doesn't give you much, but he's a great kid. One of those guys. I would be proud to have him as my son. That's how much affection I have for Posey. I just think he's a tremendous player and a tremendous guy. And as he gets older, he'll become more comfortable, I think, with the role as a leader, and he'll probably become more outspoken. But he's just, he's just a tremendous person. I think Clayton Kershaw is a great kid. He's as good a pitcher as anybody in this era, and he's really a good guy. Stand-up guy. They're really Robinson Cano is a terrific guy. He was a huge loss to the Yankees. The Yankees should have matched the Mariners and given him the extra money because they've been trying to replace him ever since.
Yeah, he's definitely earned it.
There's a lot of great guys. In fact, it's much different, I do believe, than when Bruce and I broke in. You had whole teams that were full of guys who were just either obnoxious or crabby, like the Phillies. The Yankees at that time were battling each other. The A's under Charlie Finley and Williams and all these guys were battling each other. You had racists, you had anti-Semites, a lot of things, a lot of situations that I encountered in the clubhouses back then you never have now. They tried to borrow women from the clubhouses. Melissa Lemke had just passed away. I guess it wasn't Chiffon, but one of Al's who worked was the first beat writer for the Toronto Star. She just passed away. But these people had to go to court to get their rights in the clubhouse. In these days, it's just really much different. I think generally, most of the managers are pretty media savvy. Most of the players have been taught how to deal with people in the media. I think really this website that players website that Jeter started is a good thing because it gives the players a chance to write their own story without a journalist basically picking and choosing the quotes they want to use to fill in their own story, which is what we do. Even if we're honest about it, trying to tell the story, we're still abbreviating their quotes. And this way, they get a platform to say what they want to say. And I think that's a good thing. There's just plenty of places now with social media and the internet for players to go. And I think they're just more savvy about all these things than they used to be.
Well, Barry, thank you so much. We've had Barry Bloom from MajorLeagueBaseball.com, MLB.com on the line. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to have you on again later on in the season. How's that?
Anytime. You know that. I mean, Bruce is one of my oldest friends. Anything I could ever do.
Great. Again, Barry, thank you so much for joining us on Sports Econ 101.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
All
That
right.
was good stuff.
Yeah, Barry's, as I mentioned, I didn't even bring this up, but here's an interesting little sideline with Barry. In 1981, I got blown out of a radio network job in New York. I came back to the Bay Area with my tail between my legs. I was a 29-year-old kid, and I needed a place to live. I was staying with my folks for a while, and Barry had a 2-bedroom house in the city. He'd just broken up with his wife. He needed a roommate. He had 2 rooms, and he said, "Hey, Bruce, you want to share my house with me? I could use a roommate to help pay the rent."
There you go.
And we shared the house together. About 6 months later, he got a job with the San Diego Tribune as the beat writer for the Padres. Left. I got the house, moved in a roommate, stayed in that house for 8 years, and
Wow.
started freelancing, and then got my job at
You
KNBR.
guys are such good friends.
So we know each other from a long ways.
All right, let's see. We're going to cut to our third commercial break. Here's the final trivia question about baseball. Who was the first pitcher in history to win 2 consecutive season MVP awards? All right, again,
Okay.
hard questions here.
Yeah.
First 3 emails with the correct answer are going to win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. Who was the first player in history to win 2 consecutive season MVP awards? Stay with us. We'll have some closing comments on Sports Econ 101.
I think it might have been Ernie Banks. Let me guess. I think it was Ernie Banks. Can't believe Ernie Banks is gone.
No, that just...
He died so suddenly. He wasn't in bad shape. He was old.
80, yeah.
He was 80. Well, he was 80, 82, 83, 83, yeah. I just visited my mom today. She's doing a lot better, but God, she's almost 92.
Wow.
But I think I was really worried. I didn't think she was going to be around for a while now. She seems to be much better, so I get the feeling she may be around for a few more years.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Good that for her, I just don't like to see her. She's not in any misery physically, but it's tough. I get to be that age, but if we're lucky enough, we get to be in that position someday.
Yeah, as long as, we're not in too much pain.
Yeah, my dad wasn't in any pain, but he couldn't control his bladder. He couldn't walk very well. He couldn't see very well. He couldn't hear very well. And but that was up until 90, he was doing pretty well. Then 90, 91, 92, and 93. Last 4 years were tough. Yeah, but shoot, 90. That's pretty nice. He was doing well until then.
Not a bad life.
No.
Okay, we'll do this quick 2 minute 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
And then I gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh, me too. You go first, though.
It's okay. I get Katie to let us both.
Okay, great.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, last time for the show, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Great segments with Barry.
Yeah, he knows his baseball. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
That's his game. That's his life. Yeah.
Okay, here was our third trivia question about baseball. Who was the first pitcher in history to win 2 consecutive season MVP awards?
That's interesting because in the old days they actually would give a pitcher an MVP award in addition to Cy Young Award if they had such a great year, and I think it might have been Sandy Koufax.
No, that was potentially one of them. But Hal Newhouser.
Oh,
yeah. Of the Tigers, 1944 and 45.
They're going back.
These are tough. Yeah, I know.
No, that's okay. Now, Hal Newhouser was a great Hall of Fame pitcher with the Tigers back in the post-war years. Yeah.
I think for your fees
Or
in the
late.
Hall of Fame, then that's a good trivia question.
Yeah.
All right. So, any last comments before we cut out of
Well,
here?
I'm looking forward to, I keep up, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners do, with the NBA and the NHL, but I am like everybody, just chomping at the bit for this Major League Baseball season to begin because it's every day we get to watch a game or keep up with the game. And there's so many good teams as usual.
Yeah.
And out here on the coast, we got the Giants, the Dodgers, the A's are going to be back. The Padres are improved. The Mariners up in Seattle. West Coast baseball is about as good as it gets right now.
The Angels.
We're spoiled. The Angels will be right there too. Yeah, no question. I mean, the Angels they've got as much talent and depth. The problem is again with them is pitching. Do they have enough pitching?
Definitely Seattle Mariners. I think they're going to be ones to watch this year.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go for our thoughts of the day. The Chinese government encouraged the country's tallest female basketball player to marry the country's tallest man. Their child was Yao Ming.
Is that right?
Right.
And Yao Ming is about 7'4".
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
And at horse tracks, the favorite wins fewer than 30% of the time. And that's why I always bet on the long shot.
Oh, might as well.
All right. I want to thank my co-host Bruce McGowan again.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective. And I believe we're going to have someone talk about WrestleMania coming on. That'll be kind of fun. We're going to be giving away more free vacations for answering sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week. So long.
All right.
All right.
Sounds like a